Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, finally, after a little bit of a hiatus. I'm sure most of you saw the last video that I uploaded where I kind of covered my big crash that I had out in California. I said in that video that I broke my collarbone, and then I've kind of just been like dead silent for the last 3 months on all social media, not just here on YouTube. And it's because it's been a pretty tough couple of months here. But I wanted to make this little update for you guys just to let you know that I am still alive, although maybe not quite as healthy as I would hope to be. So here we are, 3 months, 2 surgeries, a plate, and 13 screws later, and it's still not looking like I'm quite ready to go yet. So, I'm fortunate that this was just a collarbone. Compared to some injuries, it's still pretty light. But as far as collarbones go, this was like the worst case scenario. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to pop in here and let you guys know what was up, and let you know that I'm not far from getting back on the bike. Things are finally starting to sort of turn around here. Now that I'm a little bit closer to being healthy and in a little bit better of a mind state, I figured now I finally feel comfortable to like tell the whole story and let you guys know what's going on. So to keep you guys a little bit more engaged, I will kind of put my face over in the corner and I'll play some unreleased footage from the summer that I just never got around to posting. So I guess without further ado, let's just throw it back to the beginning. Out in California on November 5th, hit the ground and immediately knew things were not okay. Being that I just had shoulder surgery on the same left shoulder last year, as soon as I hit the ground, I was, thinking the worst. Obviously, I reached up and I could feel the collarbone was almost sticking out of the skin. And I was honestly happy at that point, because if my collarbone felt fine, then obviously something would have been wrong in my shoulder. So yeah, we loaded up, rushed to the ER out in California just to make sure that, I hadn't like pierced my subclavian artery or, pierced a lung or anything like that. Got some pretty quick x-rays just to confirm that it was broken. While I was still in California, I sent those x-rays to my surgeon back here in Michigan. My orthopedic surgeon took a look at the x-rays, which I'll put on the screen right now, and he said it's pretty clean break down the middle and some separation. And we were kind of on the fence whether surgery even was necessary or not. You can see the two pieces were like kind of touching each other, top to bottom. Obviously, that's not like a very ideal way for a bone to heal, but in just a normal person that's not racing professional motocross, that probably would have healed up somewhat okay. But I just felt like I was in a lot more pain and discomfort, and just my shoulder just felt like it was sitting at a funny angle. I just didn't feel like this was just a standard break. So I kind of was persistent with wanting to go through and getting the surgery done, and he agreed that being that I'm a professional racer, it would heal quicker and heal stronger if we went ahead and plated it. So he also pointed out that these two little bright spots were tiny little bone fragments, or what we thought were tiny little bone fragments at the time. If they couldn't get the fragments back in plate, they kind of just like grind them up and turn them into bone paste, and then use that paste to kind of hold the two halves of the bone together. So yeah, we had a plan. Got into surgery like a week later. I went into it feeling pretty good. I think we all did. And then, when I woke up, obviously got the news that things were quite a bit worse inside than we had thought. I'm sure orthopedic surgeons all love to say it, but when I first saw him, he comes out and he's like, "Man, this is the worst collarbone I've ever seen." And I'm just sitting there like, great, man. That's exactly what you want to hear when you come out of surgery. But the x-rays that I got out in California, I only got 2 of them. One was straight from the front and one was straight from the back. So when I sent those over to my orthopedic surgeon, that's all he had to reference. So although the x-rays that I got showed the top to bottom separation, what they didn't show is that the 2 bone pieces had a huge separation forward to backward. So in the x-rays, it looked like the 2 bones were touching top to bottom, but actually there was a ton of distance this way, if that makes any sense. And those 2 bone fragments that we thought were just little pieces were actually about 6 centimeters long. They were just turned 90 degrees between the 2 larger fragments. So it essentially made a big Z shape. Obviously, those fragments were turned sideways, pointing straight at the x-ray. So you couldn't tell. You were just getting a cross section of them. And that's why they appeared to just be little guys. And the reason there were 2 of them is because that segment that broke out of the middle also split in half long ways. Obviously, when they cut me open, that was a bit of a shocker to them. They were not expecting to have to deal with that. So obviously that's quite a bit worse than we were expecting it to be. And, you know, hopes of getting back on the bike in 4 to 5 weeks were pretty much out the window. Also caused a lot of soft tissue damage. So like the muscles and everything in my shoulder, the bones like pierced straight through. And I think that's where most of my pain was coming from. A broken collarbone doesn't really hurt too bad, but just all the damage that it did to the soft tissue is really what I was struggling with, especially the nerves. Had a lot of nerve damage coming out of surgery. Like my entire pec, all the way down my bicep, even down into my forearm was just like completely numb, but like hot stabbing pain all the way down it, you know? If you guys have ever had nerve damage, you know what I'm talking about. It is one of the worst pains ever. And like a lot of professional motocross racers, I don't like to take any prescription pain medication or anything. I've just had too many stories from friends, you know, getting addicted to that stuff that's just not something I ever want to risk. So I just never take those. Was just on the Advil and Tylenol program, and it really wasn't doing much for me. So 6 weeks were absolute pain and misery. Couldn't really sleep. Even just sitting upright would just send stabbing hot pain down like everything down the front. The only relief I could get was leaning backwards, but then that soft tissue damage in the back of my shoulder felt like someone was piercing a knife like through my shoulder blade. So it was honestly the worst injury I've ever had to deal with as far as coming out of surgery. I mean, I've done ACLs, shoulders, ankles, stuff like that, and this was by far the worst, which I was not expecting just from a simple collarbone, you know? So yeah, the initial recovery was pretty tough, but that unfortunately was not the worst of it. The biggest problem was, for whatever reason, the internal stitches that were holding the muscle together on the inner half of my incision just let loose. I don't know. I have like really sensitive skin whenever it comes to sutures, or even band-aids really mess with my skin. So I don't know if that's why, or maybe because of how much muscle damage there was, the muscle was just kind of like mushy and dead, so the stitches wouldn't really hold it together. But for whatever reason, those internal stitches failed, and that allowed the muscle to split back apart underneath the skin. And so it was just really mushy, and like I could put my finger all the way down and touch the heads of the screws and stuff like that. And at first it wasn't an issue, but then once I started to do some physical therapy and like get back on the indoor bicycle, blood would pump into that cavity, and it like swelled up the incision and really stretched the skin and started to make it really, really thin. I just had kind of like a pocket of blood right under the incision, and I was just waiting for it to pop. And eventually it did. Of course, that was a bit of a scary moment. I could literally see like the head of a screw through the hole. So obviously that wasn't ideal. So that was probably about like at the 7 or 8 week mark. So yeah, I went back in for surgery number 2. They cut me back open, removed 2 of the screws actually, which is pretty nice. So I only have 11 screws in there now. They cut away all the dead skin and muscle, reattached everything, and now it's super, super solid. So that of course added a little bit of time onto the recovery, but after surgery number 2, I was feeling really confident. We had a day that I was set to get back on the bike, which is actually supposed to be this weekend. I'm actually supposed to be on my way down to Monster Mountain right now, but unfortunately just 2 days ago when I was on the indoor spin bike, the opposite side of the incision is kind of doing the same thing that the inside of the incision did, just on a bit of a smaller scale. Had a little kind of blister form, it popped, we had to pull an internal suture out of it, and then drained a lot of blood. It's kind of still up in the air right now whether I'm going to need a third operation. Maybe it's something they can do under a local, where they just kind of numb that whole arm and just do it while I'm still awake, or potentially whether it's just going to heal on its own. We're not really sure yet, but we are officially beyond the 3-month mark from when I first did this thing. So, you know, what I thought was going to be a quick 4 to 5 week recovery is slowly turning into more like 4 months, which is pretty depressing, honestly. In the grand scheme of things, I mean, some injuries like a femur or an ACL take 4 months as it is, but I just wasn't expecting this. And, you know, every couple weeks I start to get my hopes back up, and then my dreams just get like shattered again. So obviously that's been tough. But the toughest part by far is just, I've just been watching my body basically deteriorate through this whole thing. 1 year ago, I was just getting back on the bike from a 4-month-long shoulder surgery recovery. And, you know, I spent that whole last year just rebuilding, getting the strength back, just getting back in moto fitness. And I was really happy with how things were going. Broke the collarbone, wasn't too worried about it. I thought I wasn't going to lose a whole lot. But, you know, now this is turning into even a longer recovery than my shoulder was. And this has been even worse because with a normal injury like my shoulder, you know, it was a 15-week recovery. But by the 6 or 7 week mark, I was starting to do physical therapy. So for over half of it, I'm like making progress, seeing the muscle build back up, just getting more and more excited for the day that I would finally get back on the bike. And that's kind of how it is with every injury. But with this one, I haven't been able to do any sort of physical activity at all because every time I do, that incision starts to swell and then it bursts and then I have to go back in onto the operating table. So really have not been able to get in the gym hardly at all. Have barely been able to get on the spin bike. Really the only thing I can do is just focus on my diet and stretching. I've lost a lot of weight. It sucks, man. And obviously that's why I haven't been, you know, uploading any videos or anything. There's just haven't been in the right mental state, and on top of that there just hasn't been anything to post or edit for you guys anyways. I mean, pretty much I just wake up and my day is spent just looking forward to when it's time to go to bed again, you know, because at least when I'm asleep, it's like I'm fast forwarding through little bits of this freaking nightmare. So it's been grim, but I'm definitely not here to have a pity party or anything like that. I'm not looking for any sympathy. Just wanted to update you guys and let you know what's been going on and kind of where I'm at in the recovery process. Let you know that I'm still kicking. If everything goes right from here on, I should be back on the bike pretty quickly. This little hiccup isn't as big of an issue as the other side of the incision was, and hopefully nothing else goes wrong from here. On a positive note, I did buy a new dirt bike since I've been injured, so not going to tell you guys what it is yet. I'm gonna, you know, let that be a little bit of a mystery for you, but very excited to start doing some upgrades on that thing and get down south and break it in. I've also, you know, had a lot of downtime to set up new partnerships. Just been sending out emails galore every single day. So have some new partnerships, new sponsorships that I'm really excited to show you guys. The first ride back vlog should be an absolute banger. Just showing you guys all the new stuff we've got going on. So went through some dark patches there. Not quite out of the woods yet, but there is some light at the end of the tunnel, and hopefully this thing heals up soon and we'll be back to our standard programming. But thank you if you clicked on this video and watched it this far. It means the world to me that you guys are still supporting the program no matter what happens. Hopefully we can turn this ship around and have ourselves a good year. But anyways, guys, that's all. Thank you very much for tuning in. Hopefully we'll be back on the bike very soon. Peace out, guys.